Greetings, mortals. They call them the happiest places on Earth. But behind the laughter, the castles, and the costumed smiles, some doors only open one way. Tonight, we wander through parks built on dreams and shadowed by death.
Disney parks are designed for flow. Everything moves. Lines, parades, crowds, always forward, always managed. But sometimes, someone stops moving, and the system doesn't know what to do. In the early 1990s, a family rode It's a Small World, a slow, whimsical boat ride known for its animatronic singing dolls and mind-numbing theme song. Halfway through the ride, they realized their youngest child was gone. He'd been seated between them moments before. When the boat returned to the loading area, he wasn't there. Panic erupted. The ride was stopped. Staff combed the track. Security swept every boat. 15 minutes later, the child was found. Not in the water, not backstage. He was sitting calmly in a boat several cars behind. Confused but unharmed. No one could explain how he'd moved, without being seen, without panicking, and without a single cast member noticing. The family filed a complaint. Disney gave them passes and a statement. There was no safety breach. But the story stuck. It became an urban legend with a real incident at its core. And it wasn't the only one. In 1994, 14-year-old Rebecca Weiss disappeared near her hotel room at Disney's Caribbean Beach Resort. Her belongings were in the room. The door was locked from the inside. No witnesses, no struggle. Security footage showed her returning alone that evening. It never showed her leaving. Her case didn't happen inside a park, but it fueled the growing rumor that people could vanish on Disney property, and the company would bury it. There are no public, confirmed unsolved disappearances inside Disney parks. But that hasn't stopped the speculation. Former cast members speak of sudden Code V clears, mass area evacuations where no guest was ever explained, of back-of-house sweepers told not to ask why security was rerouting them. And then there's the media blackout theory. Some journalists allege that Disney's influence in local jurisdictions, especially in Florida, where it functions like its own government, can delay, suppress, or reframe police reporting when incidents occur. Not cover-ups, just quieting down. In one case, an adult male was separated from his group near the Animal Kingdom Safari Zone and wasn't seen again for over 4 hours. Rangers and security found him wandering in an off-limits service road, dehydrated and confused. He didn't remember how he got there. He didn't remember leaving the path. Disney's official statement: the guest was safely located after a brief disorientation. Brief, 4 hours, in a park with cameras on nearly every walkway. These stories never go viral. They're handled, contained. But when you dig into the forums, the cast blogs, the former Imagineer threads, you find whispers. Children who walked behind the wrong set piece. Guests who opened the wrong door during a fire drill. Staff who walked backstage and never came back on shift. None of them have names, but they all follow the same pattern. There was a moment, a transition, and then silence. You're never really alone in a Disney park, not unless someone wants you to be. And if that silence comes in the middle of the happiest place on Earth, who fills out the report? Beneath the Magic Kingdom, there's a second world. A hidden network of corridors, rooms, and access points known as the Utilidors. A 9-acre tunnel system that stretches beneath the park like a circulatory system. To Disney, it's a logistical marvel, built to manage movement, deliveries, and magic. No Tomorrowland trash bins wheeled through Frontierland. No break room-bound princesses crossing Main Street. Everything stays in theme because the real park is underneath. But the stories from below don't match the brochures. Officially, the utilidor system is for cast traffic, costume maintenance, trash routing, and emergency response. There's a central security station, a costuming department, even a cafeteria. But former employees say that after the first week, something starts to feel off. They describe cold zones, sections where the air drops by 10 degrees with no explanation. One former cast member described walking past an electrical room and feeling like she was being watched by something that didn't want her there. Another said it plainly. Something walks past you before you turn the corner, and always from behind. Security footage rarely captures anything. Sometimes the cameras go black. Other times, they record static. On at least 3 occasions, employees have reported being touched, shoulder grabs, taps on the wrist, only to turn around and find no one nearby. One story from a cast member in the 2000s involved a missing custodian. Not vanished, but misplaced. His shift ended. He never clocked out. His uniform and ID were found inside the tunnels, but he wasn't. Hours later, he walked into the surface break room on the opposite side of the park. He had no memory of how he got there, no signs of distress. He just said, "I thought I was still downstairs." Disney quietly revised its tunnel staffing protocols in the mid-2010s. Sources claim a new policy was introduced. No solo assignments in the utilidors longer than 20 minutes. Unofficially, it was described as a psychological wellness safeguard. They say it wasn't fear, just exhaustion, isolation, the fluorescent lights, the noise. But others say it's something deeper. The tunnels were built over reclaimed swamp and filled in decades ago. The soil underneath was never fully stable. And in the early days, before it was all paved, parts of the unfinished tunnels would flood. There are cast legends about the lower subtunnel, the one that doesn't exist, built for expansion, then sealed. Workers called it the Hollow, said it led nowhere, that it had no air vents, that if you walked far enough your flashlight would start dimming, even with new batteries. They say nobody goes that deep anymore, but sometimes workers still hear footsteps echoing through sealed halls. A dragging sound, like wheels on concrete. One electrician, during a night shift in 2018, claimed he heard crying, soft, then loud, coming from a room that had been padlocked for years. When he asked security the next morning, they said the audio monitors had gone dead that night. Nothing was recorded. Others report distant music, not piped in, not identifiable, just wrong. Like carousel music slowed down, faint, then gone. The tunnels are functional, strategic, essential to the illusion, but there's something in them that the show doesn't acknowledge. Something in the air, in the corners. So if you ever get a backstage tour and they take you below, remember, you're not in the park anymore, you're under it. For all its wonder, Disney is built on precision, safety, repetition, but even magic breaks. And when it does, sometimes people die. There's a list, not publicized, but real. A collection of confirmed fatalities across Disney's US parks, each with its own legacy and its own silence. We begin in 1984. 48-year-old Reginald Dolly Young boarded the Matterhorn bobsleds at Disneyland, California, a high-speed alpine coaster weaving through artificial mountain peaks. At some point during the ride, she became unseated. Investigators believe she stood up, or slipped, and was thrown from the sled. Seconds later, another car struck her. The impact was fatal. she was decapitated instantly. The ride was shut down for less than 48 hours. Cast members still refer to her section of the track as Dolly's Dip. Ride operators report that motion sensors are occasionally tripped in that same stretch when no sled is present. Night shift technicians have reported hearing footsteps on the catwalk above that portion of the ride. Always light, always stopping just before they're seen. Her name never appears on in-park memorials, but those who work the Matterhorn remember. Fast forward to 2003. 22-year-old Marcelo Torres boarded Big Thunder Mountain at Disneyland for a thrilling ride through the desert-themed caverns. But that day, a mechanical failure changed everything. A guide wheel on the train's front axle came loose due to improper maintenance. As the ride accelerated down a hill, the locomotive derailed. The front car slammed into the undercarriage, and Marcelo, seated in the first row, was crushed beneath it. He died from massive blunt force chest trauma. Several others were injured. The ride was closed for investigation. A lawsuit followed. The findings were damning. Poor maintenance logs, skipped safety checks, overlooked part replacements. Disney settled quietly. Guests who witnessed it said the sound was unforgettable. We heard a snap, then everything buckled. The ride reopened less than 6 months later. 2 trains collided during a late-night shift change at Walt Disney World's monorail system. One operator, 21-year-old Austin Wenenberg, was killed instantly. A switch had been incorrectly set, allowing one train to reverse into another. The cab crumpled on impact. Guests and operators nearby heard the crash. The station fell silent. Austin was remembered by colleagues as precise, cautious, kind. Disney placed a plaque in his memory, backstage, away from public view. Within a week, the monorail resumed operation. There are other cases, ones you won't hear on the tram ride in. In 2005, a 4-year-old boy lost consciousness on Mission Space. The ride simulates a space launch, subjecting riders to intense centrifugal force. He died later at the hospital, likely from an undiagnosed heart condition. In 2011, a Disney worker was crushed by a stage wall at Animal Kingdom. He was part of the team setting up for the Festival of the Lion King. OSHA cited Disney for serious safety violations. In 2016, a 2-year-old boy was killed by an alligator at the Grand Floridian Resort's lagoon area. The beach had no warning signs, no fencing. His family was steps from the water. The boy was pulled in, and his body found the next day. Afterward, Disney quietly removed shoreline seating. Signs appeared overnight. No lawsuit was filed. The family settled privately. The pattern isn't the incidents, it's what comes next. Minimal media, rapid reopenings, controlled messaging. Disney is a media empire with its own press teams, its own lawyers, its own city councils. In Florida, it operates with municipal-level autonomy through the Reedy Creek Improvement District, now Central Florida Tourism Oversight. This control means when something tragic happens, it gets handled, quickly, quietly. One ride operator recalled how the area around a fatal incident was deep cleaned within hours. New signage went up. Guests asked questions. Most got maintenance issue as an answer. There are no permanent memorials, no plaques in the park, no framed photos near the queue, only whispers from cast to cast. They call it the reset. When the show breaks, it's paused, repaired, and resumed. But some places, don't forget, it's tough to be a bug. Custodians say one seat always feels warm after closing. No one sits there. It's just always warm. Space Mountain. Operators report hearing safety restraints unclip in empty cars. Audio logs show the clicks. Maintenance finds nothing. In Pirates of the Caribbean, there's a section known unofficially as the Cold Bay. No air conditioning. Just a wall of cold that cast members walk through every night at close. Guests never notice, but the cast does. Why does this matter? Because people assume theme parks are immune to tragedy, that the magic is total, that smiles mean safety. But every ride is a machine, and every machine has its limits. Some of these stories made headlines, others were buried. All are real. Disney doesn't advertise its fatalities, but it learns from them, adapts, rebuilds, refocuses, and then the music plays again. Universal Studios is known for monsters, but not the kind you see on screen. At Islands of Adventure, tucked behind the thrill rides and themed lands, maintenance staff and security teams have shared stories they don't tell guests. Not because they're forbidden, but because they're hard to explain. We start with the Incredible Hulk coaster. At night, the massive green track sleeps. Power is cut. Sensors are offline. Cars are docked and locked. But multiple overnight staffers have reported hearing its cycle. Not a full launch, not motion, just the sound of it. That deep mechanical rumble. The lift hill chain clicking to life. The air compression kicking on. Technicians rush out. Nothing moves. Systems are cold. No logs show activity. One security guard quit after hearing the chain start 3 times during a midnight shift. "I thought someone hacked it," he said, "but it was unplugged, entirely dead." Others have heard footsteps in the track trenches, where no one is allowed after dark. And one night a tech found every test dummy facing backward. They hadn't been installed that way. Then there's Jurassic Park River Adventure. The ride shuts down with a distinctive hiss, hydraulics bleeding pressure, the water system draining. But even after shutdown, there are reports of splashing. Heavy, deliberate splashing. Security footage once captured ripples forming near a raft, with no one aboard. Movement sensors along the riverbanks triggered, then went silent. Motion alerts that read, "Zone breach, path obstructed." No animals were loose, no staff nearby. One groundskeeper said he heard laughter. Children's laughter, in an empty splash zone, at 2:12 a.m. It wasn't a speaker, it wasn't a loop, it was just there. A few guards now refuse to walk that path alone. "It's not the dinosaurs we're worried about," one said. "It's the water." And then there's Soundstage 33, rarely open to the public, used for storage, rehearsal, and special events. Inside, props, lighting rigs, stacked animatronics, an eerie stillness and movement. One night, a lighting technician returned to find every spotlight tilted inward, aimed at the center of the empty stage. They hadn't been programmed that way. Other staffers report hearing footsteps in the rafters. Objects fall without being touched. Music cues randomly start. Tracks not listed on any console. A costumer once left a mannequin upright overnight. Came back to find it seated, legs crossed. No signs of tampering. And then there's the voice. A single syllable. Heard over headsets. Whispered at the edge of recordings. No one's been able to cleanly isolate it, but they all agree on what it sounds like. A name. These stories aren't shared on tours. They're passed among staff, over cigarettes outside the gates. At 3 a.m., when the power's cut and the park breathes differently. Not every location in Islands of Adventure has these reports. But the ones that do, they keep reporting. Because here's the thing. The park doesn't sleep. The rides do. The guests do. But something else? It watches through the trees, Orlando.
Behind the screams of joy, there are other screams. Some from the past, some still echoing in dark corners, some never reported at all. Disney and Universal were built to delight, to distract. But even the cleanest parks can't bury every shadow. Good night, my mortals, and until next time.